A lot of people ask me, genuinely, I don't just say that, a lot of people ask me about whether I use a mouse or a graphics tablet, and whether that graphics tablet has a screen or not. These are really important questions for beginners because I think a lot of you are wondering, how do people who can spend 7+ years on a game project, maintain the stamina over that time without, developing a hunchback or like a giant shoulder. Creating art for its own sake or for games can be really time consuming. Often, 5 or 6 hour sessions. If you're really dedicated, you'll sit there, in the one spot, fixating on your work for a long period of time. And that's why I think input methods and workflows around those inputs are really, really important to kind of letting your stamina last as long as possible, giving yourself the best chance to, not be completely drained at the end of the day. So I'm going to tell you how I produce the art for my game and why I think my input setup is kind of like the best of the bunch. So the first thing that I think people get drawn towards is the idea of using their mouse, because most computers have mice. So if you're not working directly on a laptop, you're going to be in this position where you're thinking, okay, well, can I get away with using a mouse for pixel art? And I think a lot of the time that's understandable, right? That you would want to try that. And for short stints and for very small canvases, I think it's okay. But there is kind of like a fundamental problem, I think, with mouse movement when you're not just doing like word processing or swapping between the mouse and the keyboard, is that holding this position for long periods of time is quite taxing. If you don't have an armrest, or just if you're trying to get precise with your mouse movements, doing these movements with your fingers does require an engagement of your shoulder and elbow. These muscles are doing something just to brace you here, right? Because not naturally, your arm wants to drop. Right, your arm wants to be here. And here, unfortunately, doing mouse movements, you kind of have to go from gripping the mouse to like resting on top and like moving the fingers like this if you want to be that loose. And I personally, that's a bit weird for me. Particularly when it comes to doing pixel art, if you've got your arm here propped up for the keyboard, and then you've got your arm over here and you're trying to do something comfortable, you'll find that, yeah, this doesn't really want to relax. I think you'll find, when you're working in like an art program, typically like when I'm working, one of the things that I like to do is block in shapes. And for me, this is much harder to do with a mouse. And you can see like right here, you can see my elbow engaging as I'm trying to draw bigger arcs on the screen. That's something that I think with beginners, this is why I mentioned like smaller canvases, because if you're working in just 32 by 32 and the silhouette of what you're drawing can be, blocked in with just like a simple, shadow or something like that, then you have this situation where you're coming in here and you're kind of just, you're just doing very minor adjustments, maybe even with a 1 pixel brush, you're just coming in here and you're going like this. You might just be clicking things. And if you're just clicking around, then, I think that's not too bad. I feel like it's fine. I mean, we use computers all the time like this. People who play FPS games probably find themselves doing this a lot. And for me, like my art is usually a lot bigger than this scale. So I find that I'm tending not to use my mouse this way. Sometimes if I'm just trying to do a very minor edit and I don't have my tablet with me, maybe I just notice something while I'm playtesting my game. Sure, you can come in and do a couple of adjustments, but I feel like with any kind of like painterly work, which is what I do a lot of, trying to draw the same way that I would with a pen is really taxing on my shoulder, right? My like right pec and my shoulder, I can really feel them starting to get a little bit tired already. So for me, the mouse, I know a lot of artists swear by it, and I'm not going to take that away from them. But for me, it's just not very ergonomic for long periods of time. So the next question you might be asking is, okay, if not a mouse, then maybe a tablet. And for me, that's basically the answer. So I use this small Wacom Intuos tablet. It's one of the cheaper ones you can get. And for me, it's perfect. So I can totally relax my shoulder here, just let it rest. And the only thing doing anything is these muscles here on the finger. Like I'm really not applying much tension here or here at all. And, if we come here and go into A Sprite, I can just very easily, draw something, make some nice big, defined strokes. If I want to do like a fire hydrant or something with this red, then I can just come in here and block that in and go like this. And of course, this is a little bit messier than if I was to use, you know, a mouse. But I think when you're trying to draw things at scale, then using a mouse can be, it's like too early to use such precision, you know, like it's kind of better to just block in the shape. And I get complimented a lot on this. People say, oh, like there was nothing there like 30 seconds ago and now I see a fire hydrant. It's like, yeah, because like I'm not fixating on tiny pixels. I'm just making sure that I can get something, you know, on the screen immediately. And I don't live in America, so I don't actually know what your fire hydrants look like perfectly, but that's my best kind of guess, you know. Bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of this. Something, you know. So for me, like that's how I like to do it. And there are a few things here that I think are really important when talking about this particular conversation. So a lot of people will see something like this for like $100 and they'll say, oh, like that's the cheapest kind of thing. Shouldn't I spend more money and get maybe a bigger one? And I think that's kind of like the first little gotcha of this whole market. So for me, actually, the less I have to move, the better. So the way that tablets work is they take the position of your mouse relative to the drawing area and they map that to the screen, right? If I'm here and I move my mouse to here, that's covering the whole screen in like, you know, 6 inches. I can basically reach this middle 50% of the screen without moving anything except my wrist and my fingers, right? Which is pretty good. I don't have to engage my shoulder and I can get all the way across the screen. Especially if I zoom in, you know, I'm getting my whole artwork inside of this space on my monitor. And the monitor's like, you know, 25 inches or whatever, but my drawing space is just 6. It's 4x6, which is nice and comfortable. So if you were to try to scale this up, like I own a bigger tablet. I've had this for many, many years. And, you know, apart from being bigger, there's not really much else to it. Like the technology that's been in these tablets has been pretty much the same since like 2010. So basically, you know, you're going to get your 4,000 levels of pressure sensitivity or something like that. You're going to get your little alt buttons on here. They don't have batteries, or at least the ones that are not wireless don't. A USB connection's fine. There's no latency with either kind. So realistically, all you're really doing is making this size bigger. I don't use the fancy buttons on the side of my bigger one or the little ones here on my smaller tablet. I just use my keyboard because I've got 100 buttons right here. So all the bells and whistles, as far as I'm concerned, are kind of like eroded away. And all that's left is how big do I want this drawing space to be? And for me, smaller is better. I've just accepted that over time. I prefer to not have to move quite so far to get the same distance on screen. That does mean I end up zooming a lot more. So I'll zoom out to move somewhere else, right? If I can only go from here to here with my mouse, then I'm zooming out so I can cover more distance and then zoom back in. And I'll do that a lot with my work. I'll work over here, zoom out, over here, zoom in and do some changes. But for me, that works. I mean, that's how I like to do it. The next question would be, what about something like a Cintiq or an iPad or a Surface Pro? I actually started my game Insignia on a Surface Pro. So I was doing art on that device for a number of years. And, you know, as a tablet, you know, I would sit and draw on it. And I did like that device. Like it was an enjoyable device to use. However, there were some ergonomic issues, like drawing up on a device, on a surface, is not particularly enjoyable. You want your hand to be down and relaxed. And if your computer, if the device is in your lap, then having a separate keyboard or input device is something that's a little bit awkward. So like if this is where my screen is, where does my keyboard go? Do I have it above my screen? Do I prop the screen up a little bit? Do I have a keyboard underneath it? You see the Surface Studio has like an elevated monitor with the keyboard underneath. There's just a whole bunch of things that you can do that are kind of, they feel like compromises if you don't have access directly to a keyboard and mouse. When I'm working on my laptop at home, I literally have my laptop here, and then I put this on the trackpad. So I'm still able to do the same hand posture where I have my left hand on the keyboard and my right hand on the pad. And again, this is small enough that it can just fit on the laptop, kind of just hanging off the edge there like that. And it works just fine for me. So I really enjoy this kind of ergonomic setup for me. And I use it on the go and I use it at my computer. There are other reasons that I'd like to go into. Part of it is heat. So, the surface of a computer gets hot because it's got components in it that are doing stuff. When your hand is resting on a monitor, it warms it up, right? The monitor warms your hand up, the hand warms the monitor up. A lot of people use gloves in digital art to prevent much heat transfer. They're also trying to prevent palm interference. Now, I know technology's changed a little bit in the last 5 years. The Apple Pencil, as far as I know, is pretty good at palm rejection. The Surface pens are pretty good at that kind of stuff too. But it's still something to be considerate of. For me, like I said, unless you have like an extra peripheral, I used to actually use a Wii remote connected via Bluetooth while working. I would hold in my left hand and I would do all my keyboard shortcuts with my Wii remote. That's kind of going back a little bit, but there are devices you can get out there that do that. For me, unless you're literally on a bus and all you have is enough space in your backpack for like an iPad, then I can't super recommend it. I also obviously am an Sprite user, and Sprite's not available at the time of recording this on iPad or Android. So there are other things we could talk about, like your hand blocking the screen. Maybe it could be my bias. I'm not gonna, not gonna judge you if you use any other input method, particularly if it works for you. So just to give you some proof that what I do at least works for me, we're going to do some art now for my game Insignia. So I'm actually in the middle of doing some level design, and we've recently decided that we want to explore a little bit more of a possibility of having the character be kind of like going through the Z depth of the levels. So we've got a lot of side scrolling, and I do have doors that you walk through the level in, but not that many in the open environments. So the idea here is that we would have like a freestanding door that you can just walk directly through. So I want to kind of experiment with that. And the way that I do this in my game is I'll switch the camera down to the native 640 by 360, and then I'll take a screenshot. It's a little hack just for you for you out there. Basically, I'll just go straight into Sprite, make a new file, paste it, and now I have like a pixel perfect space where I can just draw on top of. So what we can do here is basically just start cooking. I think I want the door to be maybe a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to press Shift N here to make a new layer, and I'm just going to block this in red because it's just easier to do. I've got this tool called Ace Brush that I've got. You can get it from my Discord. Somebody, Wispy, wrote this for me. It's basically just a hold D, click and drag to increase and decrease the size of the brush. You can do something similar in the keyboard preferences to have like D and scrub to actually make it bigger or smaller, or it might be Control or Alt, or I'm not sure what the button is, but I like the fact that I have to push down and drag because it makes it a bit more precise when you're anchored on the surface. So anyway, what I might do here is just think about maybe drawing this with the character in mind. So I kind of want the door to be nice and obvious, kind of like this big. And I want it to be something that you can't really miss. We might make it symmetrical too. I think that would be a good idea. So let's try that again. Let's go here. Let's put the center point like there. And then, yeah, let's do that. Something like maybe a little smaller. And I want a layer behind it where we can do a little bit more just random geometry, just to give it a backing, because I know that with the parallax backgrounds, we're going to need to sort of keep it nice and solid. So I'm thinking basically like a cutout made out of stone or something like that. I might turn off the mirroring just for this. And then of course this needs to be hollow, but in this case, hollow is more like black. And it might be cool to have some kind of something visible and parallaxing. That would be interesting, masked out, so that we can kind of see the depth through it. I'm not going to go too far in with it right now, though. I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. And it's really important here to kind of blend these two spaces together. So I'm just thinking about like, okay, we've created two distinct shapes. Now I'm going to erode those shapes away so that what's left feels like one cohesive thing, like the door was carved out of the stone rather than the door and the stone being these two separate shapes. And you can see like I'm pretty like liberal with this stuff. Like I don't care too much about the exact pixels just yet. Like I'm not really there yet. I just want this shape to get done first. And I might even be so bold as to just merge this down. So we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. I think we could, maybe except for these two parts here, cut them and put them on a new layer with Shift N, paste, and then just merge this down. So now we've got this and then this. That works for me. And I might add one more shade color here, just to give it a little bit more depth. Okay, I'm using the L tool here, which is the line tool, and that lets me do, you know, pretty straight lines. And then, because this is rock, you know, it's not bad to do a little bit of highlighting on it where it's catching the sunlight. That just gives it a little bit extra. If you have these little single pixel lines here, that makes it look like a hard edge. You see? Not sure how specific I want these to be, but I'm liking this so far. I don't usually like commit to a specific color. That's the thing. Like right now I'm using gray, but like we could color shift these. We could do anything with these colors. It's not that it has to be this gray. It's more just that I want to play with value first, as if I was doing something grayscale. That's pretty cool. And then I would just start taking some of these colors that we use for like the grass and stuff and just get a bit messy here. Maybe even go behind. What I'm doing here is I'm pressing V to select the layer with auto select layer on. So I press V, click what I want, and then press B. So like, you know, if I'm picking a color, I'll go Alt, click, V, click. That puts me on the same layer with the same color. So Alt click, V click. Space to drag. So that's it. You know, I feel like my shoulders are feeling good. I'm relaxed, my hand's good. I could sit here for another hour or two pretty comfortably and get this door nice and polished, and I probably will. So leave me to that, and I'll leave you to enjoy creating some pixel art. Thank you so much for checking out this video. And if you want to see more of the game and what I'm doing, definitely check out the Twitch stream at twitch.tv/AdamCEunice. I stream 5 days a week. We have a team working on the game now. So we've got animators working. We're actually building a tool that I'm going to tell you a bit more about soon that'll be available on the Unity Asset Store. So we're developing that on stream as well. If you're interested in all things development, pixel art, and Adam, that's it. That's the video. Thanks for watching. Until next time.